Well, hello. I'm James, and this is a weekly moment when I share some thoughts with you about some particular topic. I like to always begin by reminding you you are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. No matter what anyone else may have told you, it's a lie if you define yourself by anything less than love, because love defines who you are. You are born of and embody love. So does everyone else. So do I. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about fear because it seems to be that which really drives our world today. Fear. It drives our politics, it drives our personal interactions, it drives the way we choose to live our own lives. We live from a place of fear, of quiet desperation. Now, we are wired in our bodies to react quickly to fear. If something is coming at us quickly, we don't have time to think about it. Oh, that's a car bearing down on me. I probably should. In that period of time, we'll probably be hit. However, if fear takes over quickly, doesn't give us a chance to think, we dive out of the way, perhaps, and save ourselves if something is coming towards us. Those kinds of moments of fear are wired into us and natural, as are any fear responses. But there's a little tiny walnut-shaped piece of our brain called the amygdala, which really sort of controls fight, flight, or freeze response to things that cause us fear. If you wonder why, if someone disagrees with some of your core beliefs and you immediately stand up and start an argument with them, it's because inside you're fearful. You're fearful that someone is challenging that by which you live your life. And so you're afraid for your life. It's not just an idea, it becomes embodied in you, embedded in you. And so paying attention to our fears is something worth doing. One of the biggest realms in which we see fear taking hold is the way our political parties in the United States and probably wherever you're watching from view it. Fear is what drives us to vote for people. People no longer tell us why we ought to vote for them. They tell us why we shouldn't vote for the other person because of what, and they'll drive your fears, driven by fears. They will do this thing or that thing, and it causes us fear. Fear becomes the way in which we choose to live our lives. We're afraid of taking risks. Perhaps we've had our heart broken one too many times. Perhaps we've been traumatized in our childhood by something. And fear becomes anytime we sense something that might hurt us, we run away or we fight. We sabotage that possibility from happening because we're afraid. Fear protects us, but fear can also limit us in being who we're meant to be. We are fearful to step outside of traditional bounds that are often gender-related bounds. If you're a male, you're expected to act in certain ways in our society, and to step outside of that is to incur the wrath of other men and women who feel like men should behave in a certain fashion. Same is true for women, driven by roles our culture tells us ought to drive us. And so instead of living out our true calling or our sense of purpose or that for which we are created, our soul's calling, we live within the boundaries set by cultural norms that we are fearful of crossing. So fear can become that piece of us that keeps us from engaging at a deeper level. And so what I want to invite and say to you today is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And to spend some time perhaps this week and in the days coming, looking at the things that cause you fear, that seem to motivate you not to do things rather than to do things. What are the things that you're avoiding taking a risk on because you're afraid of what may happen? Now, in some of those instances, being afraid is probably a good thing, and maybe there's a reason not to cross that line of fear. But there are other times when fear limits you from really engaging with another person because you're afraid that taking the risk might hurt you. You're afraid of what others might think of you, how that might affect the way that others see you. Fear becomes a limiting factor in your life. Um, so, all I'm inviting us to do, me and you, is to be aware of the things, the fears that may be impacting our lives, to admit those fears. And then perhaps if the fear is rightfully held and should stay in place, leave it perhaps less examined. But if it's something that's holding you back from living the life you are called to live, being the person you are meant to be, if that fear is holding you back, then I encourage you to find ways to let go of that fear, to stretch yourself, to push beyond the limits of those fears. Taking risks and it is something we're invited to. Be bold and courageous. Do not be terrified, for God is with you. That's from the book of Joshua. I'm going to try to be a little bit bolder in my life, say what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and do the things that I'm called to do. And sometimes I'm going to cross those lines and those bounds because that's what I think I may be called to do, and perhaps you are too. But whatever you do with your fear, remember you are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. Until the next time.